if you don't embrace the Web3 tools, you're kind of missing a trick.
Every Web3 project needs to have a Telegram strategy.
We were really excited that Telegram was going to be launching Ton. All we knew was that it would change everything. It broke Ethereum.
It broke Ethereum.
Being successful it's an endurance race.
We're in London at Cafe Murano with Robby Yung, CEO of Animoca. Very well. Thank you so much. This is Robby's restaurant. Why have you picked this restaurant?
So I picked this restaurant because it's been a favorite of mine since I first moved to London. It's located here in Covent Garden in the center of London. It happens to be close to my office, so thank you for coming towards me. But one of the things I always loved about this place is obviously it's well known for the food, but I like the ambiance and the atmosphere, because if you're going to have a working lunch and meet up with people, you want to have a place that has good food. You don't want to break the bank either, because it might be an expense. And also, you want to have a nice atmosphere. So, despite being here actually kind of in the middle of Covent Garden, it's mostly full of locals as opposed to tourists.
Do you know what you're picking for us, or do you think
I have an idea. I did look online at the menu, so I have an inkling.
Okay, brilliant. Hopefully I get a very nice meal from you, so I know what you think.
Hi.
The menu?
Brilliant, thank you. So I thought we might start with a salad, maybe the bean and peach salad. And then, because I always like to look for things that, I can't make possibly myself. Fresh pasta is kind of a weak spot for me, so maybe the tortelli, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So much.
So look, you started out NYU, you studied out there. So how did you get from there to building like the biggest gaming empire in Web3?
So I can't take credit for building the empire. That goes to our chairman and co-founder Yat. And I think he and I have been friends for a really long time. We've been friends for now almost 30 years, and we kind of cut our teeth in the Web1 days when we were part of a small entrepreneurial community in Hong Kong trying to make web startups back in the mid and late 90s. We were literally 30 or 40 people trying to create startups. It was a very small community, and we had a get together every couple of weeks, which was kind of networking and kind of a support group, I guess, where we would exchange ideas. We would talk to each other about stuff we were working on, but mostly we would exchange contacts and try to help each other with fundraising, because that was what we were all trying to do. And that's when I met Yat, and he and I had our first startups at the same time then, and we stayed friends for quite a while. And then eventually I joined him in 2012, and he had just started Animoca Brands, or what became Animoca Brands, a couple of years earlier as a mobile free-to-play game company. And this was at the dawn of mobile. So basically the company was started in 2009, just when the App Store first launched. And so we were a mobile games company for many years, and had, the roller coaster of success that most games companies have. And in 2017, then we discovered blockchain. And so it was that, discovery that really catapulted, the business into the echelon, I guess, of where it is today, because I think we identified relatively early the emerging trend of thinking about using blockchain for content and for things besides fundamentally Bitcoin, which was pretty much, the major use case at the time.
Back then, you knew enough. Did you go all in on blockchain, or was it just we're gonna have a little bit of a touch of element of it? Or
so the thing that inspired us about it was we had the good fortune to meet a team working on a hackathon project in Vancouver, and their idea was to create a game out of content that was tokenized. And so they wrote a token standard on Ethereum, which we now call the ERC 721. And this team later became a company called Dapper Labs, but it was still a hackathon project at the time. And so we worked with them on their sort of first game concept, which was a game called CryptoKitties, which was essentially collectible trading cards equivalents, digital trading cards. And we had the opportunity to publish that game in Asia. And that experience for us was transformative, because the idea or the rationale for tokenization to us as game makers was completely logical. Because if you think about what people do in games, they buy virtual currency and they spend virtual currency to buy virtual items. And if you think about that, that's exactly what tokenization is. The virtual currency are, cryptographic tokens, or ERC20s in Ethereum parlance. And the content can be non-fungible tokens or NFTs. And that way, once you tokenize it, gamers can actually have true digital ownership of the content that they have in games. And there's a long history of this, actually, which we learned later within the crypto community, because in fact, when Vitalik conceived of Ethereum, it was as a method for him to think about how can I trade my World of Warcraft gold, right? So there's a long sort of interwoven thread between people who are passionate gamers and thinking about the monetization and economies of game economies, and people who are active in the early days of blockchain. So that moment in 2018, when we decided to go all in on blockchain, we didn't know like how long adoption would take. We didn't know what the final form of it would be. All we knew was that it would change everything, and we had to be there. So we tried best to chart a strategy to say, how can we, play in all aspects of this, because we don't know whether this is going to be great for finance or e-commerce or communication or socializing, but we know this will be big and it's changing everything.
And with CryptoKitties, just going back to that, because I don't know if many people know about, because that was a thing that really, that slowed down the whole chain.
It broke Ethereum.
It broke Ethereum. Were people expecting that at all? Even but with you guys behind it, were you thinking, we're going to break it, we're going to slow down, we're going to really...
We didn't expect that kind of reception, but what we did expect was we assumed that as a constituency, gamers would be the first ones to understand why tokenization made sense, because they already had that learned behavior of, I understand that virtual stuff has value, because I spend so much of my personal time in digital space accumulating virtual stuff, and it has value to me in games, whether it's a fast car or a sword or whatever it is in a game that has value. And so, the ability to then trade and transact and have ownership of that value is something that matters to that audience.
With the games, as you were just mentioning, I think because obviously skins is probably the economy in Web2 traditional gaming. Is there anything that can be learned by the Web3 games of how people receive parts of that Web2 with the skins and other stuff, rather than just trying to tokenize it or NFT for the sake of it?
So I think that you always have to think thoughtfully about what is the point of tokenization, because as you said, you don't want to tokenize just for the purpose of tokenization. It doesn't actually mean anything. What you want is you want to understand where digital ownership has value to the user, where decentralization, for example, has value to the user. And I think that there are some areas that, to me, are kind of no-brainers when it comes to the game industry specifically, which is once we start adopting tokenization standards for content and for value, that's very exciting to me, because not only does it mean you can own stuff, it opens up the door to interoperability. And I think interoperability is one of those things that gamers have thought about for a really long time. Like, I've earned all my gold or my diamonds in this game, and I'm, what we call a whale in this game, but maybe I don't want to play this game anymore, I'm bored, but I accumulated all this stuff. Why can't I bring it over here to this new game that's caught my attention? Because I want to bring that value over here. I want to bring those items over here. Maybe I'm in a racing game and I have the most kitted out, best modified car in the game, but I'd love to bring that car over to this racing game over here, right? And that same analogy applies, I think, of interoperability in Web3 generally, because if you think about frequent flyer miles, right? How often have we thought, oh, I have all these over here, I wish I could use them on this airline over there, right? Because I just want to do this one flight, even though I do all my other flying on this airline, and wouldn't it be great? But they don't go to the place I want to go. And Web3 opens up those possibilities because of interoperability. Now, I think the hesitancy when it comes to gaming audiences is that the original PR of the way these games were executed was not good. Like, the original impression that gamers got of games that were tokenized was that there was a strong element of just trying to profit from them monetarily. And yes, that's true. There is an audience that likes to do that, because people play games for all different kinds of reasons. Some people play games for status. Some people play games for, because they have time that they want to kill and they want a distraction from something else. And other people play because they want to achieve things in the game. They want to get to the top of the leaderboard. They want to earn the most in the game, etc. And I don't know that any of those motivations are bad or wrong. They're just different because different audiences like different things. And the challenge for a game maker is to have a great economy that actually caters to all of those different audiences.
So with the game makers, as you're saying, should they try to not even really focus about the crypto elements, but then utilize those crypto elements for the extra utility, exactly what you're saying, like moving it out there? Because I think we're kind of seeing crypto games with it's focused at sort of the crypto, what the crypto can do, but maybe the gameplay isn't there or it just isn't engaging.
Yes. So I think people in games always talk about fun, right? But fun is a very difficult thing to describe because fun is different for everybody. And it goes back to that, question of what's my motivation for playing the game. A lot of people who are what we call crypto degens, for them, fun is making money because that's their entertainment and that's why they do it. So I think that it's about trying to figure out how you can be that platform, but you still need to provide fundamental value to your users. You need to provide them with an entertaining experience. You need to provide them with interesting IP. It needs to be visually pleasant. But at the same time, I think if you don't embrace the Web3 tools, you're kind of missing a trick because you're essentially, building houses and apartments and just offering them for rent and nobody can own them. If they can own them, then they can get mortgages and have money to start businesses and renovate. And there's a whole nother world that gets unlocked because of the element of ownership. And that's the part that we're really passionate about in Web3.
I'm glad you speak about ownership. You did a quote. It said, speculation comes and goes, but permissionless ownership is the unlock that never leaves. So you have this light bulb moment.
Said that?
You did say that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound very good. You had this light bulb moment about digital ownership.
Yes.
What turned that light on and what made you think, this is...
Honestly, there's nothing profound about it because one of the things that I've learned over the last, sort of 7-8 years that we've been involved in the Web3 side of things is whenever you run into a complex problem in thinking about how to create digital economies or think about digital ownership, just look at the physical world. We've literally spent the better part of 8 or 9 centuries thinking about things like property rights, the rule of law, governance, all these problems, as humans, we have beaten our heads against the wall and gone to war, etc., to try to solve these problems, to make rules and systems that work for everybody, for the widest possible audience. And we can actually just carry much of that into digital space, right? So it's less complicated than you would think. We have an opportunity to start with a clean slate, but I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel because so many of those things like contract law, for example, extremely tested. Why would you toss away 300 years of precedents and say, we're going to start a new law in digital space? It'll take another 300 years to get it right.
Gotcha. Great. No, I love the sparkling water, by the way.
Refreshing, considering it's 30 degrees out. There we go.
Salad in salad. Lovely, enjoy.
Thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Right, our salad.
There we go.
Why did you pick this salad for us?
Why did I pick this salad? Apart from you being veggie, I think it's very hot out today. We're having our 4th heat wave of the summer here in London. So I like to have something refreshing. And when I saw peaches, that kind of caught my eye. To be honest, a good salad is a real art. And it's one of those things that it's nice to go out when you have somebody who really knows what they're doing, make one for you.
Well, we're going to tuck in. I never see peaches on a menu ever.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really great.
You said every Web3 project needs to have a Telegram strategy. Do you still believe that now, or do you feel...
Or was that just riding the hype of last summer?
Well, yeah, exactly.
No, I do. And I say that because... it's not just that Telegram happens to be, the most popular social network for people in Web3. That's obvious. I think it's because Telegram represents a distribution vector for applications that we make in Web3, which wholeheartedly embraces what we do in Web3. And that's one of the things that's been a challenge for us. And we understand this intimately, having come from mobile games, right? We've spent, all those years when we were in gaming, really trying to adapt our content to, the likes and dislikes of the two biggest distribution platforms, which were Apple's App Store and Google's Android Store. And it's very much the same when it comes to products in Web3, because we lack really great broad distribution channels. And so for that, Telegram actually happens to be, one of the few channels that has a very, very large global audience, but that also is fully embracing of things with Web3 built inside.
That's great. And when you talk about strategy, like what would the key points be? So maybe we look at it as a company that maybe isn't as familiar, maybe one of these Web2s that are wanting to have the Web3 element or an IP or brand, they want to come over and they hear about the Telegram strategy. Is that just having a channel or just being on Telegram? Because there's a huge amount of range.
Well, first caveat, I'm not a Telegram expert.
No.
But I do think, we have actually a studio of ours called Gamey, which have been Telegram experts for quite some time, making games on Telegram for many years. And I think one of the things that we've learned is that the beauty of Telegram is it happens to be, I think, really the only messaging app that is popular in non-Asian markets, that has really adopted a lot of the virality and inbuilt marketability of many of the Asian super apps, which is that, for example, I think of games obviously as an easy example. If you're playing a Telegram game, you can share your game scores or invite your friends into the game inline in a chat, very simply, and it launches from directly inside the chat. And that's something that you cannot do on other popular messaging platforms, namely the big Western ones like WhatsApp or, the built-in messenger on an iPhone or things like that. You can't do that, right? These are all siloed activities. And so that ability to so easily share and engage and bring people into your application while staying within the Telegram ecosystem actually is great.
Is there anything maybe we could learn from these big super apps?
Well, I think my view is, number one, consumers love to have convenience and they love to have seamlessness. And so in building a super app, that's one of the ways that you can offer that. Apple, for example, has tried to take a different approach because they've tried to do it with the entire device to make seamlessness inherent in the device. And that's why they tend to be more stringent about what you can and cannot do with apps. But I think the problem is that you then are beholden to the sort of terms and conditions and policies of what it is that Apple likes. And I think that one of the things that we really take from Web3 and is a part of the sort of DNA of the Web3 community is we want things to be open and permissionless. We want to be able to have the ability to make new applications or to chop and change applications to provide new functionality. And I think that's something that, thankfully Telegram seems to embrace as a platform that embraces Web3, that look, if you have a better application or a better mechanic or way to do something, you can use that with it too. You don't have to just use the one that we offer you.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense.
Fantastic.
Look at this.
That looks great. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you very much. I love tortellini. Our mains have a right. Why did you pick the tortellini?
Because, as per my usual restaurant rule, it's about going out to have food you can't make yourself. And freshly made pasta is kind of a weakness of mine because it really is an art.
You are one of the largest validators on Ton.
Yes.
How come you've sort of committed to that?
Okay. So our job as a validator, of course, is to run hardware and infrastructure to help validate the network. So as many of you might know, blockchain networks essentially require validators to validate transactions that happen on the network, and these are decentralized. So actually, the more validators you have in a network, the better. And validators do get paid because they do a job and they do work. So from our perspective, it's an opportunity for us to become literally part of the TON network. And it makes financial sense for us because obviously there is an investment return from that job of being a validator. One of the reasons we wanted to do it was because we were really excited when we learned that Telegram was going to be launching TON, because we've been participants in the ecosystem for so long. As I said, we have our studio Gamey, who's been making games on Telegram for many years. And so we've had a view into that community and that network. And frankly, we've just been waiting for the blockchain part of Telegram to be launched. And so when Ton was initially proposed to us and we had an opportunity to get involved, we didn't hesitate.
What do you do to foster this innovation, these ideas? Do you just come together in a room and go, like, what are we doing this week? Or
I think for us, in thinking about how we make investment decisions in Web3, a lot of it is taking bets on ecosystem growth. Because one of the things that we learned a lot from our days historically being involved in mobile games is we learned about building very large-scale user communities and player communities in that case. And so when we think about where we place bets in Web3 from an investment standpoint, we want to be in places where we think there are vibrant communities and they're going to grow. And they are going to benefit from the virality and the network effects of tokenization and Web3. And so Ton, honestly, is obvious from that perspective.
What can it do more to get the users on Telegram to convert into the users? Because we saw from the tap to earn games, you could get those users when there was a reason, but it was keeping the users or those users doing more in the ecosystem. Like, is there something missing? Are we?
So I think the the magic of growing these kind of ecosystems is not magic at all. It's old-fashioned heavy lifting, and it's developer support. It's that combination of marketing and support. So you market to get developers excited about, oh, here's an opportunity. If you come here and build, there are customers, there's money being spent, there's all the things that you're looking for as a developer. But at the same time, there's support because you may have no idea how to build here, right? So people who were on the web had no idea how to build on mobile. And so they started using developer toolkits. They used, game makers used things like Unity or Unreal as game engines. So these toolkits and that support is really important because they need handholding. And the challenge we've seen with blockchain adoption in the last 7-8 years is it requires even more handholding because so much of it is new. And so this is not a uniquely Telegram problem, but it's something that's incumbent on all of us, I think, in Web3.
And I suppose everyone learns differently. So you can't just say, look, you've got the docs there. You learn. Some people learn from videos. Some people learn AI agents. I'm assuming, is there specific areas that need to be looked at more than others?
So I think there's that. And there's also, if you're building a very big platform like that, it needs very, very close attention from UI, UX.
Yeah. I think as the coffee's coming with the dessert, we're going to do some quick fire questions, really quick answers.
Go for it.
Okay. What time do you get up?
I get up at 6:30.
6:30. What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure. Good question. I have to say dessert because I can't really narrow it down.
You're not letting me have a
sorry.
dessert.
Well, that's precisely why.
What makes a good founder?
Somebody who's a glutton for punishment. No, that's tongue in cheek, but related to it, a good founder is somebody who has perseverance, because being successful it's an endurance race. It's not about any one particular thing. It's about can you tough it out for the long haul.
Legacy. What would you like Animoca to be remembered for in the next 10 years or in 10 years' time?
I think, like every founder, the most important thing is, first, we still want to be around in 10 years. But I think we'd like to be remembered for really having influenced the direction of Web3.
Brilliant. And podcast or book that influenced you?
Good question. I think book. I think I love Gabriel Garcia Marquez, to be honest. I love magical realism. And so I'd say 100 Years of Solitude.
I did not understand that book. I've read it about 5 times. I did not understand it all blowing away, but yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you. There's our coffee, not dessert, I see. Ronit mentioned when we asked him to give a guest question.
Yes.
What advice would you give to the 20-year-old Robby?
What advice would I give to the 20-year-old Robby?
Obviously, knowing everything that you know now.
Sure. It's very hard. And I think that once you become a parent, also you start to think about these things a lot because you think about how you parent your own kids. And I think it's very hard because you have to learn lessons the hard way. And that's part of parenting, and that's part of this exercise of me thinking what I would say to my 20-year-old self. So I think basically I would just reassure my 20-year-old self that it's all going to be okay.
All the mistakes are for a reason.
Yes.
And the last thing I want to ask you is question for the next guest.
So I was thinking about this, and I'm going to stay on the 20 topic, but we could make it 25. But for the next guest, if they 20 years from now look back on this moment today in their lives, what will they remember most?
Wow. I'm glad I'm not answering that question. Robby, thank you. I'm going to let you have your coffee. There we go. Thank you so much for that. It's been amazing. I really appreciate that.